Hi everyone, this is the quick and dirty Gimp tutorial that I promised you is going to be quick and dirty. You'll have to excuse Figaro and my bro. I'm at home recording this, so you might hear football noises, dishwasher noises, parrot noises. Okay, so this is what I'm going to show you guys how to make. Is just a quick little poster here. Life of Galileo is another Bertolt Brecht um, poster, and so you guys can follow along if you want, or you can take notes as you go. And I would suggest stop and start and back forth and all that stuff. Okay, so the first thing we do is we create a new image, and I want to apologize real quick for running out of time on you guys on Thursday, trying to do too many things at once, but hopefully this will help as you put together your poster over the next couple days. Okay, so you can either, when you create a new image, you can either select a template that they have already. So this is A size, B size, US letter, legal. Toilet paper, which is, I have no idea, but I like it. But what we're going to do is we're going to come down here to what sort of size it is. It's in inches, not pixels. And so we're going to tell it to do 11 inches by 17 inches and then hit OK. You'll notice that it opens in a tiny window, but we're going to pop it open big so that we can sort of judge it. We can tell it what it needs to be. So this is interesting. Gimp, a lot of things in Gimp works like Photoshop, and that's what kind of screwed me up, and a lot of things don't work like Photoshop. I work predominantly in Photoshop, but this kind of, it threw me off, and that's why we were a little off on Thursday. So this is our layers. Think of layers as different transparent or translucent pieces of paper that are over top one another. Every time you do a new element to your paper space, you want to have a new layer for it. You can either open a new layer by right-clicking onto the layer piece, and it says layer, new from visible, duplicate layer, delete layer, layer boundary size, how to scale the layer, masking layer so you can hide bits and pieces of it, and merge. That means congloming more than one layer to each other. Okay, so to start my Life of Galileo, the first thing I'm going to do is find that first background image. Now you can use a color, and to color the background, you want to use the bucket fill over here on the side here. To change the color of the bucket fill, they give you the opportunity. This is a palette menu here. So this is the foreground and background, and you can switch between the two using this little arrow back and forth here. So say I want to change it to a bright blue. So I clicked on that little swatch of black here, and you'll notice that it popped up just over top of it. You hit OK, and then you can flip over again. You see it says current and old. It also has a palette of the ones that you've done a lot of. I'm going to choose something gold. So to change this hue station, it may be a good word for it, is you just click on this little palette swatch here. So say I want to try something gold that's a little greenish. That's way greenish. It's a little greener, and then you can kind of click around until you get the color you sort of want. I have the University of Pittsburgh, University of Miami football game on, so I'm going to pick blue and gold because that's Pitt's colors. So these are my two colors that I will use for this. So the next thing I do is I'm going to bucket fill the background, which is this one right here. So I'm just going to click on it, and you'll notice it just filled it. If you want to do a gradient, that is cool too. So you see down here, clicking on gradient. Again, this is sort of a bucket fill, and it gives you the colors that it's going to gradient to. This is kind of like an ombre, so it goes from blue to gold. And the shape of it. So if you want linear, bilinear, radial, square, conical, shaped, different types of things. So let's say I want to do a linear. What I'm going to do is click at the very top, and you drag your line where you want your gradient to go. So you notice it got darker. I keep pointing at the screen because I do that all the time. It got yellower down here, bluer up top because I kind of drew it in a diagonal. I don't want that. I just want a straight blue. So I'm going to hit Command, if you're on Mac, Command Z, and it'll go back. Command Z is your hot undo button. Okay, so I have that, my background done. Next thing I want to do, you're going to see my Facebook. You see all the embarrassing things I look at. I'm going to go into my Google image search, and I want a universe, a cosmos. That's going to be my background for this. That's beautiful. That's beautiful. That one's beautiful. I'm going to pick this one. Yeah, it's really nice. So I'm going to right click on it and it brings up the menu. I'm going to copy image. So I'm going to come back down to my Gimp, to my original piece, and I am going to paste as new layer. So what it wants to do is create these, it doesn't automatically, and this is the one thing that screwed me up in Photoshop, it automatically pastes it as a new image, or paste it into a new layer. This has one extra step in that it pastes it as a specific image, rather than in the image itself. Okay, so I've got my lovely little cosmos here. So what I want to do, it's the wrong size. So there's a couple different ways to sort of resize this. If you hit over here in the menu, there is a rotate function, which means you can turn it. So let's go ahead and rotate this. And you'll notice that it doesn't grab it. You can rotate it just like that. You can also change where it rotates from. It doesn't necessarily, and this is one thing I really, really like. So if I want to rotate it from like out here on the side of the picture, which is pretty awesome. So you want to rotate it like that. That's cool. You can rotate it from down at the bottom corner here, which is awesome. I'm going to cancel that. I don't need to rotate this because it's about perfect. What I do need to do is skew. Now, so you hit the skew button. Let me turn this off. So you hit the skew button and you tap on the piece of the image that you want to skew. And it has little boxes here because that's where you're going to grab it from. If you look over here, so this tells you the size of it in inches, and you can skew it in ratio. So that means that it resizes in the same ratio, width and height ratio that it started with, or you can, if you break this chain, it'll skew kind of wherever it wants like that. So we're going to skew wherever we want it like that because I want it to be almost the same size. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to back off of it just a little bit to create our border. So that's about 1/4 inch right there and 1/4 inch right there. You'll notice I have the ruler up. I think it comes automatically with the ruler up, and I'm going to hit go, and it scaled it right pretty. I'm going to turn off this background here and create a new layer because I think I want my background to be white, not black, or not blue. What I can also do is refill it. Let's do this, and I'm going to go down and I'm going to click white right there. Okay, and then I'm going to bucket fill right there. Figaro loves listening to me talk. You can hear him growling in the background. All right, so we got that squared away, that our background is now white. And so what I want to do is, this is a little bright for the stuff I want to show, so I want to fade that into the background. Now, the one way you want to fade it into the background is you can either go up and change the hue and saturation, the brightness and contrast, which I'm going to show you in a second, or you can change the opacity, which is over here on the side under your layer and brushes. You can change the opacity of it. So as I click down, you'll notice that, I'm on the wrong one. Come back. And that's one thing to be aware of is that as you work on different layers, you want to make sure you click on the correct layer that's being worked on. You don't want to get 3 steps, 5 steps, 10 steps deep into a piece and notice that you're on the wrong layer, you're on the wrong element, you're on the wrong something. That is another thing to remember, is it's good to save often so you don't lose your progress. It's also really good that if you are altering a specific layer, like for example, if I'm going to do lots of alterations on my universe here, is to create a new layer so that if you get 10 deep into your alteration of this specific layer, and then, oops, I don't like it, what do? I back, I'm out of backs. Oh crap, I have to start all over again. Just recreate a new layer, just add a new layer, especially if you're going to do an alteration that is pretty drastic. Just copy this layer. And to do that, so I'm going to do that right now. I've clicked on this layer, and blue means it's highlighted. Blue means it's the one that you're working with. I've right-clicked on it, and you'll see again, duplicate layer. So you want to click on that. And then I just turn off this layer. This makes layers, this little eyeball makes layers visible, invisible. I just turn it off so I don't have to see it and it won't screw up what I'm looking for. Okay, so back to it. I'm going to change the opacity of this to a little less bright. I'm going to take it down to about 70%. All right. So 65% I think is pretty good. You can also type in up in that box as well. So this is it's giving me a good background for it. So the next thing I want to add is I want to add my Galileo. My big head of Galileo. Galilei. There he is. I can't remember which one I picked. Oh, you know which one I did? I did it off of money because it was a really, really good one. The rest of these are kind of weird. So he's on Italian money. So I've decided to choose this one because I really like the etched element of it. So I'm going to right click again, copy image. Now I want to alter this image, and it's going to be too complicated to alter this image on the original because I have to do some clipping and messing about. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it in a new document. So Shift Control N that's a new layer. Shift N is a new image. So again, it's open my new image. I'm going to hit OK because it's just going to open it. And you'll notice what it did is that it opened it with the background color, and I don't want that, so I'm going to bucket fill it into white. And then I'm going to paste my Galileo. So Galileo is a little off center here, and I want him a little more center so I can see the whole thing. So this is our move. The 4 arrows up here is move, so I can move him wherever. This is going to be useful whenever you are altering and moving elements around in your poster. The one thing I will suggest is to go down here on the side here and click Move the Active Layer. I was having a problem with this because I was clicking on something and it was moving the layer that was on top of it, the layer that was not the one I wanted. So I just moved the active layer, which makes it a little easier. Okay, so I have all the rest of this Italian money garbage all over Galileo, so I want to cut him out. And there's a couple different ways to cut him out. The first way is this is our rectangle select tool, which allows you to select just in a rectangle. So I'm going to cut a lot of that out. And then once you get that, you can also slide it around within that rectangle. As well. I don't need to do that. So the next thing I'm going to do is Control Shift A deselects. So it allows you to create your selection outside. I'm going to go over here and I'm going to go to Add to the current selection. And what I'm going to do, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom in so that I can see it a little bit better. Get my Galileo real big. and he's losing his head, so I'm going to bring him down just a little bit so I can get all of that. So I've gone up and I've grabbed my lasso tool. Now my lasso tool is awesome because what I can do is it works like a magnet. So I'm going to click here. I'm going to, oops. Nope. What I need to do first before that, and this is the one thing that got me, is I'm going to create a new layer and add it to the image. So I'm making it its own layer rather than just a pasted layer. So now it's a little easier to work with. And you'll notice that anytime your stuff doesn't show up, just go over here and make it into its own layer like that. So I have my own layer, and you'll notice that it creates little yellow dots. Now I'm going to go around and sort of select very delicately around my dude here. This can be very fidgety depending on how sort of precise you want to be. It's okay to be really precise on this. The other thing you can use this for is kind of doing broad cutouts and then coming back and doing fine cutouts with another tool, which might make it a little easier. I'm going to come around here, do around his big collar here, down off of his shoulder, down off of here, and then I'm going to come right back to where we started from. So that it now, as you see the ants marching, that is all of my selection there. The other thing I'm going to do, because I need to get rid of this stuff in here, is I'm going to come up here and I'm going to select my magic wand right here. Also cut a fuzzy select tool. And I am going to subtract from. So I want to get rid of all of this stuff. So I'm going to subtract it from the selection I already have. The one thing to be aware of this one is the threshold. So if your threshold is really, really small, it's going to choose pixels that are really, really close to what you've selected. So for example, I've put my threshold at 11. And so it's going to pull out. You'll notice how it's not pulling out a whole lot because my threshold, it's only choosing the things that are very much like it. So I'm going to bring my threshold up to about 25 here, and that might make it a little easier. 25. And you'll notice that it chose a whole bunch there. You'll notice that sometimes it will choose into the image that you don't want to get rid of. Just Control Z, go back out, because I have a trick for getting rid of the rest of that stuff. Okay, so all of this stuff is chosen, and I'm going to copy. I've copied my selection with Control C, and then I'm going to paste it again. And floating selection pasted layer, and I'm going to just stick it to a new layer. And then I'm going to turn this one off, and you'll notice that it's my Galileo. It looks pretty great. You'll also see that there's a whole bunch of garbage up here that I want to get rid of. So I'm going to come down here to my eraser tool right here. So I've got my eraser tool, and you can change the size of your eraser tool. You can change the brush that you use. So if you want to use a really fuzzy brush like this one, which might be okay. Changes the hardness of it as well. You can make it push harder or push lighter. And then basic dynamics, all of these change as well, which I don't know a lot about it. Aspect ratio, angle, etc. So I'm going to come up here and I'm just going to click lightly and get rid of a lot of that sort of extra trash around him. I'm not going to go too far because you see it'll go into his head. Command V will get rid of that, but I'm just going to take it a little out. It's not going to hurt my drawing that if I have a little of these, but I just want to clean it up a little bit. Okay, so that is my dude. So this is my Galileo. Control Command A, select all of it, and I'm going to actually before I do that, Command Shift A. What I want to do is come back up and I want to select just Galileo. You don't want to go back and redo your selecta because that will take forever, or your magic lasso and just trace around it. What you can do is just click. I've changed my magic wand back to add to current selection, and I'm just going to click over top of it. So it has selected all of the stuff out around it, all of the things that are this color. So what I want to do, so this is, it selected the stuff that I don't want, and to select the stuff you do want, you go back up to your selection and you invert. And he has disappeared right to here. You got to go up to this selection and invert. So it has now selected just Galileo. Oh, yes. So I'm going to copy, Command C. I'm going to take it back over to my universe, Command V. There he is. So this is my Galileo. I'm going to put him down into his own new layer. You notice he's a little tiny, so I'm going to come up here to my select scale tool, and I'm going to scale him up a little bit as well. So I'm going to click on him, brings up that box. I want to make sure that my scaling is in the right, stays in ratio. So I've clicked the chain, so it's chained together. All corners are chained together. I'm just going to make him a little bigger here, because the play is about him. Little off center, which is okay, but about there, I think. So I'm going to hit scale. There he is. I'm going to move him around to get where I want him to be. Now, you'll notice that the one thing I don't like is that he is about the same tone as the background, so he kind of fades into the background. Not a bad thing, but I don't necessarily like it. So what I'm going to do is I am going to choose up a new layer right there, and I'm going to click on it. So the things that I'm going to do are all going to happen in that new layer. So I'm going to create a selection. I clicked on my circle up here, and I'm going to create a selection that is just about his head. And you notice with the circle that is not aspect ratioed, but you can pretty much get, I think about there is a good size. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my control. Okay, so I screwed it up. It's off my drawing. I didn't start up here far enough. So Shift Control A is going to deselect that. So I'm going to try again. I'm going to start up here, so I make sure I get my right size. So about that. Now it has made my selection for me. So to make this into something, what I'm going to do, so what I need to do is I need to make this part show up a little better so that he is not as light as the background. One good way to do that is so what I'm going to do is I'm going to fill this with a color and put the color between the white background, which makes the stars look very faded, and the star layer. And what that's going to do is it's going to make that star layer pop. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here to our bucket fill. I'm going to click on my dark blue again. I'm going to hit OK, and then I'm going to bucket fill that. Now what happened is it covered his face. So the trick to this is that you can click and drag the layers up and down in primacy. So I'm going to put this back. I'm going to put this back here. I'm going to grab it and move it. I'm not. It's decided, wait. Shift A. Okay, I've turned it off. For some reason, it has decided not to drag, so I'm going to pause it and find out what I did wrong. All right, I figured out what I did. I figured out a shortcut. Normally you could just grab and drag, because I've been doing that earlier. For some reason it didn't work right there. But there's two arrows down here that will move your layers up and down in the layer stack. So I'm going to go back to there, and you notice what happened is now it's making the background of the stars darker, so they are more apparent. So what I also want to do, it's in the wrong place, so I'm going to drag it around until I kind of get it to where about right there, I think, is about perfect. Okay, awesome. My Galileo is still a little wan, so I'm going to come up to my Galileo layer. One thing you can do if you're doing a ton of layers is you can name them, which is You can't. You can do that in Photoshop. Oh, edit layer attributes. So if I want to say Galileo, so I know which one it is. So if I have like 3 layers of Galileo doing stuff, I can say Galileo 1, Galileo 2, Galileo 3. Okay, so my Galileo is a little wan and it's a little faded. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up to colors, and this will work on the layer that you selected. So I'm going to go up to colors, and you'll notice it says color, balance, hue, saturation, colorize, brightness, threshold levels, blah, blah, blah. Invert is one of my favorites. Ah, he's evil. Um, let's undo that. Let's go invert again. Let's take him back to original. I want to darken him a little bit, and I want to make him pop a little, make the colors a little more contrasty. So I'm going to come down here to brightness and contrast. So what happens, unfortunately, it lets you preview, and you'll see up here is a little button so you know which one, a little window so that you know which one you need, which one you're working on. So I'm going to up his brightness. I'm going to take down his brightness just a little bit, but I'm going to up the contrast. So look at that. Ooh-wee. So he pops a little bit more out of this. The other thing you can do with this is you can change the color of him with your hue and saturation. So hue, lightness, and saturation can be changed. That's the one I was showing you guys whenever I was having that problem with the thing. So I'm changing if I want him to be blue, if I want him to be greener. I don't. I want him to stay there. Lightness. And you'll notice it changes some of the color values in there. And also saturation, how saturated the colors are. This is kind of desaturated, which means grayscale. Super saturated, which means it takes all the colors and just pops them up. I don't want any of those right now, so I'm going to cancel it and go back to the original. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is, I had a couple of those little weird circles going on. So I'm going to turn off all these other layers, and I'm going to select this layer. So I built all of those other circles that were in this. Let me find it. So I built all of these circles off of this one here, off of this circle here, and there's a neat trick to it. So let me show you that real quick. Where's my dude? There he is. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I am going to select this circle. Ants Marching says it's selected. I'm going to go into the select menu, and I am going to make a border. Now it's going to ask you how big of a border that you want, and you can change it to inches and pixels and inches and picas and points and centimeters and all those great things, and feet if you want. I'm going to leave it on inches, and I want it to be about 1/8 of an inch, which is 0.15-ish. What you can also do is feather the border so it kind of fades out as it around the edge of the selection. I don't want to do that. I want it to be a hard edge, so I've got that. And I'm going to copy and paste it. Control V, Command C, Command V. So here's my selection, a pasted layer. I'm going to attach that to a new layer. And I am going to fill it. I am not. Command Z. I'm going to turn this off so I can see. There it is. So you can see where the layer is. That's the best thing about these sort of programs, is that you can just turn off the different layers so you can see it. That was one of the other problems I was having with this, was that it was just not, I wasn't able to turn it off very easily. Until I sat down and really did it. Okay, so I want to skew this so it kind of looks like orbits. So I'm going to come in over here to my shear tool, also called skew. I'm going to click on that, and I'm going to click on the piece that I want sheared. And you grab and pull. So I'm grabbing and pulling like that. And you notice it gave me a great orbit on it. So I'm going to say, do that. That's about awesome. I want to scale it a little bit so it fills more of the space. Click on my scale. I'm going to turn off the aspect ratio. And I'm going to come up and I'm going to do it just like this. And then I'm going to hit scale. just like that. I'm going to do another one. I'm going to turn this one off. I'm going to do one more to turn it back on. So I'll come back up here and I select, come up to selection, and I'm going to create a border of 0.15. Create that, select that, and then I'm going to Command C, Command V, in a floating selection. So I'm going to pop it into a new layer, turn off our original circle over here, and you notice I'm going to turn on this one as well so I can see how they kind of work together. I'm also going to turn on my Galileo so I can see how they all work together. Now I want Galileo to be in the front of them, so I'm going to click on Galileo so he's highlighted, and I'm going to move him to top there. These are actually pretty great. Turn on my universe, turn on this circle. Now this circle, it disappears a little bit. This layer right here disappears a little bit in that circle, so I'm going to move it just a little bit. I come up here, I've clicked on that layer, come up here to the move tool. Won't let you do that. It won't let you nudge. You have to grab it and move it by hand. So I'm going to just bring it up just a little bit right there. Now I like this. This looks pretty great. The only problem I have is that it, again, tonally, it's the same tone as everything else. So I want to kind of change it into something else. So I'm going to come up to my colors and move to the hue and saturation. I think I want it a little goldish. So I'm going to go until I find something gold. Maybe there. And I'm going to turn up the lightness so I can see, oh, that's about perfect. What happens if I turn up the saturation? And this is the best part of it, is that you can kind of play around until you get what you want. And that's about awesome. Take down the lightness just a smidge, because you see what's happening is that it really shows off Galileo's face. It kind of draws the eyes to it. I also want to do a little bit on this layer as well. So again, coming up to colors, to hue and saturation, and I want it to be a little, I'm going to put it back where it was and see what lightness does. It's a little George Jetson for me, so let's change the saturation. What if I pop it down to about right there? Feels a little NASA-esque. Okay, so I got those. So this is whenever I talk about a strong central image, this is my strong central image. What happens if I move this down? Nope, don't like that. Move them back up. Okay, so the last bit I need to do on this is doing the text. You can also, before we do that, you can do brushes, which is this one right here, and that's all of these are brushes. So if you want to draw on Galileo's face, give him a big old mustache, big old gold mustache. Let's see what that looks like. Beep, beep. Probably not. Control Z to get rid of it. And you'll notice it has a bunch of textures as well. So if you want to sort of come back and draw, pick a good layer for it. So I'm going to pick this layer. And you want to draw kind of a background for this, which is awesome. If you click on Galileo and you try to draw up here, it's not going to draw because that is not the picture. Where the ants are is important. So if I'm going to draw in here, I'm going to make sure it's in here. So Control Z. And you can get rid of it pretty easily. I like this, but let's get rid of it. So you got that. You have, and I would suggest just playing around and seeing what you can figure out on it. But we are doing text. So I've got text up. And so this is our text menu right here. This is the color it's going to print into, which I hate. So I'm going to go in, I'm going to choose a black there. The hinting, I have no idea what that is. Fixed, I have no idea what that is. So this is, you can choose the text that you want. So I'm going to start with, let's see. I want this one, bold. So I'm going to go up here, it makes a little I, because that's where your text goes, and I'm going to type in Green Bay. So Green Bay Theater Company presents. And then you can come back up here, and if you need to move it around to where you need it to be, move it down here. I'm going to kind of tuck it on top up here. Next thing I want to do is Life of Galileo by Bertolt Brecht. So let's find a better. Nope, 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 nope. Weirdly, it didn't show up any of the, because I got a ton of fonts on my computer. It didn't show up any of the fonts. I bet you there's an easy way to do that. I just don't know what it is yet. But if you want to put your own font in that they don't have, let me know and I will figure it out for you. I'll take a look at it. We'll see who gets to it first, who figures it out first. Let's see. I know this is taking forever. Just pick one, April. But I can't. This one. Okay, let's try this one. All right, so we're going to write Life of Galileo. Now you see it's kind of tiny, but if you do this, you're not going to change anything. So this is the font size. This is the font that you're using. Bold, italics, underline, underscore. Scored out, pixel, how big it is. So this is not doing anything. What you need to do is you need to go down, and I'm double clicking on the typing, the text itself, and then you can sort of, oh, that's a little too big. We're going to go to, let's say, 95. Let's say 90. Okay, so there's that. Okay, so now you have, I'm going to click that. Now you have a title. I'm going to move it up here. Now that's super boring. So I'm going to double click on it. I'm going to hit text and I'm going to say text tool. So I've clicked text tool. I've right clicked onto the layer, hit text tool, and it brought up this. Let's see what this, let's see, italics? Nope. Okay, so none of those are working, so how am I going to, maybe if you go over here, you could change the font. Let's take a look. Well, let's double click that, and let's change our font. What if I want Onyx? Let's try Onyx, and let's make that bigger. There we go. Some of the other things you can do is the distance between your letters. Over here, I'm over here in the text tool options. The height of your, the distance between lines of text, which we don't have. And this is the indentation of your first line, which we don't have. You can also do center, left justified, or unjustified. Unjustified. Okay, so let's take a look and see what that looks like. That looks awesome. Now you notice I'm losing a little bit underneath there. One thing I can do, so I want a little more real estate between my circles, Galileo, my circles, and this, my text, my title. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on Galileo. I'm going to click on pasted layer, and you'll notice I've gone next to the eyeball and it's a chain, so all of these are going to be chained together. Pick this one. So all of these are chained together, so they should move as a unit. And they don't. Nope. In Photoshop, that works. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to drag then. Let's drag this one down. Let's drag this one down. I had to chain Galileo into that. So I have to chain him as well. So I'm going to put him right here. So I've left a bit of a bottom down here for my text as well. So this is much, much better. You can see this much easier. So I'm going to unchain these. And I'm going to go back into Life of Galileo. Now what I want to do, if you take a look at this one, I have a bit of a curve in my Life of Galileo right here. So I want to make that happen. And the trick to that, which I love, and I have to find out if Photoshop does this, is this box right here. It allows you to create a cage around the object you want to transform, and then you can transform it. So I've clicked on that, and I'm going to click the corners of these. So I want to do here, here, and you don't have to be super precise. I'm going to come out here just a little bit. I'm going to come down here. But enough points of movement. So, all right, so we got this. Now watch what happens. I'm going to grab this and I'm going to move up. Isn't that cool? I'm going to pull this up a little bit. I'm going to pull these down just a little bit. I know I'm getting like distracted by the cool thing. Okay, so that's good. We got that. So I'm going to go back over to my move tool. And I lost it. I'm going to have to do that one more time. All right. Move this again. Move this again. One more time. A little bit there. Move this out a little bit. Move this one out a little bit. Move this up just a smidge more. A little sloppy, but you're getting the picture there. So I got that, and I'm going to hit enter, and it made it permanent. So I'm going to come back over, do that, pop that there. I'm going to rotate it just a little bit. So this is my rotate right here. I'm going to click that, and I'm going to rotate it at center. I'm just going to do a little of this so that it's exactly where I want it. It's a little kooky, but see what I'm kind of going for there. And then move it on up there. I'm going to put another text box down here that says by Bertolt Brecht. And hit my move tool. Just move it over to where it belongs, right there. And then I'll put the rest of my text down there. And that's kind of my poster right there. So to